So welcome everyone, and we'll start letting people, Amber, I'll hand it over to you to let people in as they come along, and we'll start the presentation. I would like to start with the acknowledgement of country, and I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of our land, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and their elders past and present. I acknowledge the ongoing connection that the Aboriginal people have to this land and recognize the Aboriginal people as the original custodians of the land. And now you're probably asking yourself, why did I just do that? Actually, this is a tradition of the Aboriginal community in Australia. When you went to visit one of their communities, they did a ceremony called Welcome to the Country, which is welcoming you into their community. And when we say country, it's different than what we think about USA, Australia, and all the different countries. The concept of country is very different for the Aboriginal community. When you say country, they are actually welcome you to their beliefs, to their family, to their environment. And this is what they do every time you visit their community. Since Hongbo and I were not from an Aboriginal background, we can't perform the welcome to the country, but we do traditionally do the acknowledgement of the country, is really acknowledging the original custodians of the land that we are at. The Sydney Centre is in the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. So welcome to the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. And this is our team. My name is Thais Ozo, and it is challenging if English is your first language to say my name, but I'll give you a little trick. Just join two words, Thai and ease, Thais. So I'm the center director here at Sydney. And to give you a very quick background about me, I've been working with international education for the past 18 years. I have welcomed students from all over the world. I originally came to Australia as a study abroad student and fell in love with the country. So I am very familiar with the anxieties and the expectations that students have when they come to Australia. I'm also a mom, and I'm assuming we have a few parents on the call, and I can completely relate to all of the things that are going through your mind. Safety, are they going to have fun? Are they going to learn a lot? So we will cover a lot of this during the presentation. Of course, we will also have time for questions and answers. So during this presentation, and if any question comes to mind, just pop it in the chat function and we will address them all at the end. And of course, get to know you a little bit better. Feel free to keep your cameras on or off, whatever makes you feel more comfortable. Christina Kin is our student life coordinator. She couldn't be here today because she is with our students at Taronga Zoo at one of our cultural activities. But she did ask me to say hello to everyone, and she's she's looking forward to welcoming you all when the time comes. Hongbo is our new academic manager, and I'll let him introduce himself to you guys as well. Hongbo, your turn.
Thanks, Thais. My name is Hongbo, and I finished my PhD at the beginning of this year, and I joined CIEE as the academic manager. And my job here is to ensure that our students have a positive learning experience in Sydney. And back to you, Thais.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Hongbo. So now you've met our core team, and of course, we do have a lot of people that come as our academics, our instructors during the period, and also the people that will come in and help your students and work with us, with your students. So I'd like to start by talking about Australia first, right? As you guys know, Sydney is in Australia, and there's a few things that are important for you to know as you come to the country. We're the home of the eldest civilization in the world, one of the eldest cultures in the world, the Aboriginal culture. So the students get to become familiar and acquainted with this culture as well as they come to Australia. We are still part of the Commonwealth, so we're part of the Commonwealth, one of the Commonwealth countries, and we're one of the 6th largest country in the world. And it's interesting because we are a country, but we're also in our own rights a continent because we are an island. Australia is extremely multicultural. So 30% of the population was born overseas. So you hear languages, you experience food and different cultures whilst you're in Australia as well. More than 80% of the Australian plants and animals are actually unique to our island, which lend itself really well for topics like environmental science and marine science, which is the topics that we will be talking today. Sydney in particular, and I think I put safety on the top of this list because as a parent, that's the first thing I think about when I send my child anywhere is safety. Sydney is an extremely safe country, as you probably heard of. We don't have we're not exposed to as much violence. Guns are not allowed in Australia. So although of course there are dangers like in anywhere in the world, it is compared to many other countries, a very, very safe country. We have a very diverse cultural landscape. So as I've mentioned, I think because of our migrant nature, you get to experience not only the Australians, the Aboriginal culture, but you get to meet people from all over the world, experience different tastes, different cuisines, and learn as well, and start developing that intercultural abilities that are so highly in demand as we move along into this global world. We have a wealth of education. We are home to some of the top universities of Australia. A lot of the group of 8 universities are located in Sydney. And to give you an idea what a group of 8 is, it will be equivalent to an Ivy League school in the US. A lot of our academics and our instructors do also lecture in these universities. So rest assured you have top quality education, and Hongbo will be talking to you a little bit more about that. One of the things that I did want to mention is that we have over 100 beaches and 200 national parks in the Sydney and New South Wales region. This leads to a lot of cultural immersion into the space of environmental science and marine science, which you will see as we move along. And another great benefit of Sydney is that it's very easy to get around. A lot of people don't have cars in Australia, in Sydney in particular, because public transport is wildly available. We take buses, trains, and we also take ferries in many of our cultural excursions. So the students will be able to get around very easily and be able to commute to the different locations and to explore as well Sydney on their own. Our high school promo, I will hand over to Hongbo now. He will be covering the academic component of our programs, and then I'll come back at the end to talk a little bit more about the fun stuff that we have planned and how that integrates with the academic component. So Hongbo, I'll pass it along to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Thais. Hello again. I would like to introduce the 2 programs that we offer this year. One is called Australian Marine Ecosystems and Sustainability. The other one is called Australian Wildlife Conservation. So with the first one, Australian Marine Ecosystems and Sustainability, if you join this program, you can explore the marine biodiversity of Sydney, Australia. The Sydney Harbour and the coastline is actually home to a vast number of marine plants and animals. It is actually considered as one of the world's most ideal place, a location to study the impacts of coastal sustainability. Through this program, you will study the ecosystem up close with guided tours of aquatic reserves and national parks. You will discover which key species are under threat from marine pollution, human activity, and climate change. And more importantly, how we can make a change. Besides this very important field of marine ecosystems, another big part of protecting Australia's ecosystem is about Australia's wildlife conservation. We all know the ecosystem of Australia is a beautiful one, but it is also a very fragile one. So from kangaroos, emus, to platypus and koala bears, Australia is populated by animals unlike anything found anywhere in the world. They are a legacy that defines and also distinguishes Australia, but they are also at risk of loss. If you join our second program, Australian Wildlife Conservation, you will learn how human activity impacts Australia's fragile ecosystems and how a major global city like Sydney with a large population strikes the right balance. We genuinely welcome you to discover these questions yourself and play a role in protecting the environment and endangered animals in one of the most scenic and biodiverse destinations on Earth. All right, Thais, could you move to the next slide? Thanks. All right, so a typical week includes for Australian marine ecosystem and sustainability program includes classes on Australian marine ecosystems and sustainability, and topics such as Australian oceans and coasts, biodiversity of the Sydney coastline, and we will also bring in the Aboriginal culture and insights into the topic of sustainability. And this program also includes daily cultural activities that match our classes, and you also have free time to explore and have fun in Sydney. And breakfast, lunch, and dinner will be included for this program. Thais, could you move to the next one? Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, for Australian wildlife conservation program, we will also have classes on this topic, and we will talk about Australian environmental strategies, Australian wildlife's different ecosystems along the coast of Sydney, and we'll also bring in the very important and insightful Aboriginal culture into this very important topic. And similar to the other program, we will also include daily cultural activities, and you will also have free time to explore and have fun. And last but not least, breakfast, lunch, and dinner will be included for this program as well. All right. Thais, next. Sorry. Why will you love your experience in Sydney? There are actually many reasons that these two programs that we offer might be very attractive to you. We will have small groups of students. By that we mean for every 20 students, they will share one instructor. And we take an individual approach. So instead of taking a standard approach, we actually would consider the needs and desires for learning, and also having activities for each individual. Most of our teachers and instructors, professors, local Australians, and they have quite a lot of insights to provide with our students. And our lesson plans are always coordinated with the weekly excursions and cultural activities. So those are those are some of the highlights of our programs. And thanks, Thais, can you move to the next one? A typical 3 weeks would include experiential learning classes and daily cultural activities and excursions, and the time to explore and have fun. As mentioned, all meals are included for both of our programs. We also provide support 24 hours and 7 days, and rest assured that our students will be in safe. Their safety is always our priority through their experiences. Thanks, Thais.
Thank you, Hongbo. I just realized I was muted. Thank you for sharing the insights from an academic perspective. I think it's important to note, everyone noticed already that the meals are included. Just realize that it repeats itself. Sorry for that. But if you had any questions about that, it's important to note that in the housing, students get a lot of their meals as a part of their housing, but we also take them out. Sometimes they get a stipend and they get to eat at a restaurant. They get to adventure whilst we're out to try different flavors and different cuisines as well. In relation to the safety, and I want to go back to the safety, I want to ensure all of you that safety is one of our main concerns: safety, security, and well-being. You will have, for those of you who are parents online, you'll have access to us 24/7. So if you do have, of course, emergency questions outside of business hours, but for regular questions at all times, and you will have access to us over a phone, which you can call and reach out, and also access via email. We always have someone monitor the 24/7 phone. So that is something that as a parent, I would love to have. Being able to access my child 24/7 and make sure that they're fine, that does give me a lot of comfort. And I think it's important to note that the students do have program leaders with them. So they're never by themselves completely. They will have people with them as they move along and as they start exploring. Of course, we want to give you guys enough freedom to go and explore, but we also want to be able to be there to give you the support that you need. So it's a mix of both worlds in that sense. The usual day plan, and I think a lot of kids are interested in, so what will my day look like? So it is usually a long day. You will start your day at around 8 a.m. for breakfast, where we all get together for breakfast. After breakfast, most commonly you would come to campus and you have your classes in the morning, and in the afternoon we'll do the practical learning, the experiential learning, where we will really tie in the content that you see in the classroom with an activity out and about in Sydney. So, and then in the evenings, we come back, we have dinner, sometimes have just a bit of free time to relax and enjoy. But it's important to note that sometimes that could be a little bit different. Sometimes you go straight into the experiential learning, because we see that the learning, the classroom extends itself in the cultural activity. So it's not the learning only happens in the classroom and then we do the activities. The activities that we have planned for you during this time, they're part of that learning process. So sometimes you have breakfast at 8 in the morning, we'll pick you up at your location, and then the learning will start going to the Blue Mountains or to one of our many locations that are part of your program. So it does vary a little bit, but keep in mind, it is quite a long day. It is a long day of fun and learning. And after you can blink an eye and the program will be gone, because it's so much that you will be experiencing and learning as you're here in Australia with us. I think it's important, and I know that you guys are all curious, what are these daily activities that I'm talking about and excursions? So we have quite a lot planned, and it differs, the marine science and environmental science, they differ slightly in terms of programming. Of course, if you are focused in the marine science space, you will be getting a lot more involved in coastal areas, beaches, ocean, and marine life. In the environmental science, you'll get to see a lot of of our national parks and get integrated into that space. So I think it's a mix of both. It doesn't mean that our marine science will not see nature and the environmental science will not see the ocean. You will see both, but there is a particular focus for the different topic areas. And actually, in this image that you see here, this photo where you can see the Harbor Bridge and the Opera House, this is Taronga Zoo. Our students are currently right here at this moment in time. They went here to have to do a lesson on animal conservation in Australia. And they are also visiting the zoo and having a beautiful view of Sydney. So this is just a very live sample of one of the things that you are going to be doing during your time. And here we have a list of different activities that you should expect to be part of your program. So the Aboriginal Cultural Tour is a very important component of our program, because the Aboriginal community, they are directly linked to our environment, and the way they approach environmental protection and marine protection, and what that it means to their culture and to their beliefs and to the stories that they can tell us about the history of Australia are very important and relevant. So we usually like to start your program with that understanding, because you can come from that local community and then really see Australia through their eyes. We will be visiting many of the national parks. We will be exploring the different beaches. You'll be visiting a few different wildlife sanctuaries, both sea worlds, and also we'll be visiting a few of the zoos and wildlife sanctuaries around town. The Blue Mountains is a full day excursion where you get to see the Blue Mountains. It's just stunning views, but also very important in relation to our local ecosystem and what it represents to Australia ecosystem. There will be a few relevant museum visits where you're going to get to really immerse into that culture and start making connections to that history, and how that history is directly linked in how we preserve our nature. There will be the obvious visit to the Sydney Opera House, because I know everyone likes to see it, and it's such a beautiful part of Australia. I had it there at the bottom of the list because it's a good to have, but it's not as much. It will not be as important, as you will notice, compared to the other activities that we have planned. And we do have an overnight trip to Jervis Bay. When Jervis Bay is in the south coast of Australia, there's a lot of different national parks. There's a lot of different activities that we have planned for you. And particularly for the time that you guys are going to be in Sydney, Australia, it is the whale watching, dolphin watching season for the Australian coastline. So you will be, during your Jervis Bay visit, having the opportunity to see that firsthand. Another big question that we get from students is, where will I be staying when I'm there in Sydney? So there's two different accommodation options when you're in Sydney. We will have hostels and apartments, and the choice between the two really depend on how many numbers of students we get. Usually you will be staying in apartments and sometimes in hostels. Apartments will look similar to these pictures that you can see here, and hostels will be a bigger shared room. So you have triples and quadruples rooms, but all in the central location near to our center. Of course, all of the regular things, your Wi-Fi, the food is provided at location. It's walking distance from the center, walking distance from public transport. It's in a very safe area of town as well. So I think it's important to note these few details about our location. In addition to that, I also wanted to mention there are COVID restrictions in Australia have been lifted since July. So to come to Australia now, you don't need to have your COVID vaccines or a negative test. Mask wearing is not mandatory in Australia, but of course, although it's not a requirement, we do recommend it as a safety precaution, but it's not mandatory for your stay here in Australia. Life is pretty much back to normal in Sydney, as I would assume it is as well in the US. So you get very similar conditions when you come to Australia. And I'd like to, of course, finish off by asking you to follow our Instagram, because if you are interested in Sydney, we are always posting our cultural activities, student events, what's happening around town. Our students also take over our Instagram every now and then and give you a little bit of their perspective of what it is to be in Sydney. So I highly recommend keeping an eye on our Instagram to see what's going on here on campus on a regular basis. And I think a lot of this conversation, you will probably benefit more from being able to ask questions. So what I'll do now is I'll open up for questions, and let's see what you guys have to ask or to share if you've been here in Sydney, and if you want to share your experience as well. You can feel free to unmute yourself or add your questions to the chat function. I'm just checking here the chat function. We didn't have any questions in the chat function. I'm wondering if the group has any questions. What do you think, Amber?
Well, I'm happy to answer any questions as well if anyone has any pending questions, and I'll also put. Oh, we've got some in the chat.
Hannah, about emergency healthcare. So when you come to Australia, you come with an insurance called iNext, and you have access to doctors and hospitals as you would back home. The only difference is that you pay up front, and then with a receipt, you get refunded later. Our location is close as nearby to a hospital, and if there's any emergency situation, you would be calling us immediately, any time of the day and night, and one of our staff members will be personally taking you to that hospital or to that medical attention. We hope that that's not the case and you won't need it, but if needed, it is here for you. Andrew, how many people are typically here? So usually our group sizes are around 20 to 25 students per group, per class. So you would have around, let's say, 15 per class, 15 up to 20 per class. And Michelle, Can you tell us more about the classroom learning? Of course, I will talk a little bit about it, but I'll hand it over to Hongbo because that's his area of expertise. So the classroom learning is very much connected to what you will be doing. So it's about focusing on the areas of the topic areas in the class, but really getting you guys to start thinking critically about the issues that we have in Australia, and we draw parallels with what is going on with the US, so you can have a comparison point. But I'll probably get Hongbo to jump in. Can you tell them more about the classroom learning?
Sure. About classroom learning, all of our learning experiences will be designed as a very, very interactive process. And so it is not just about the theories. It's not just about, learning from a textbook. Actually, you will learn much more through doing activities, having debates, and, conducting your own research. Most of the research will be secondhand data-based research. And both of the programs are based on two of the very important disciplines. One is in biology, the other one is in environmental studies. So you will have that disciplinary experience as well. And it is not designed to be like a college course, but it is more of a course that can bring up some interest of our students, and maybe they will want to pursue that as a major in further in their college. And so yeah, that's pretty much it. And all of our instructors are academics and with also industrial experiences, and they're very knowledgeable, and they also have their own expertise, and they will also bring that into their teaching. And I think that's pretty much about it. Is there anything specific you know? Please let us know in the chat box. Thanks.
Okay. How much overlap is there between the two programs? And how old are the participants? Actually, Amber, could you tell us how, can you tell the group the average age of the participants? Because you have more access to the application data.
Sure. So typically it ranges from 15 years old to 18 years old, because we do have high school seniors who have recently graduated. But I would say typically the average age who does apply, I would say is about 16. It does vary, of course, but that's what I've seen the most is about 15, 16.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So Ryan, how much overlap between the programs? Although the programs share a lot of common interests and common ground, we try to keep it 50-50. We do have 50% of overlap in terms of activities and excursions. But for example, when you go to day-long trips, you might be separated into the two groups with your topic area expertise, or with the professor or the teacher for that expertise. And although you'll both be in a region, you'll be doing different things, but at the same time. So there's going to be that overlap, but there's also a lot of things that you will do separate. So half and half, I would say. Wyatt, is there a curfew? Can you do things on your own? You can absolutely do things on your own. We do recommend a curfew time, and I think it really depends on the age, and your ability to access nightlife. And I think Amber was just saying 18. I didn't even know we had 18-year-olds coming, so I thought we would cap it out at 17. So it really depends on that age, your age range, but you will have time to do things on your own. Absolutely. I think that's such an important part of the experience. Is there a possibility that one or both of these Australia programs could be canceled if you don't receive enough signups? I'll actually defer this to Amber. Ryan, what are your thoughts on that, Amber?
Sorry. So with I don't believe it will be canceled. I mean, knock on wood. But from the looks of the applications, I mean, it would have to be less than 5 people applying, and that's not the case. So that's a great question.
Yeah, and just to add on to Amber's what she just shared, we have received a very big number of applicants for throughout the year. Although we have recently reopened, of course, everyone was close to the COVID, but we have we have big cohorts at the moment. So I would imagine that the high school program would be as small as 5, as Amber said, but I would guesstimate, and this is a guesstimation at this point, that we will have around 10 to 15 per topic area. Okay. Anyone else? Excellent. Has anyone here ever been to Sydney? Raise a hand. No? I asked this because it's usually people do tend to come and then want to come and stay a little bit more. They'll come for a holiday and then come for a bit more. So I'm just curious to know. Do we cap programs, Amber? And apologies, Andrea, I don't know that answer because from our end, we do let students in until Amber tells us no, we can't have any more students because we are able to split groups and accommodate, still have that smaller environment for the student, but accommodate more. What do you say, Amber? Is there a cap? Are we going to close the doors eventually?
Eventually, yes. For example, for particular programs, especially for like Japan, I mean, we couldn't have 500 students taking over the town of Kyoto.
Oh.
So there are a couple of factors that come into play, again, like capacity. So if there's enough accommodation available, if classroom space, so eventually there is a cap. And also we don't want to take over the city of Sydney. So, that's definitely a big factor that comes into play.
Yeah, so I think we would, of course, 500 students would be quite a big number. Although I think Sydney can cope. I think Sydney can cope. I don't think the center would be, we would need to make adjustments to accommodate that number, that's for sure. Yeah.
I'm going to share my contact information as well and my phone number in case there are any other questions after this. So
absolutely. And guys, although I know that traditionally you contact, of course, our US team, and that's what's recommended. But if you have a burning Sydney question, or if you have any concerns, feel free to reach out to us as well. Follow us on Instagram, stay in touch, engage with our alumni, engage with other people that have been through the program. And that could be quite helpful as well in the decision-making process. Okay, thank you. Okay, I think if there's no other questions, Amber, should we call it the end of the meeting? Oh, no, if you don't like to. Yeah. Thank you everyone for joining us today. I know it's quite late in the US, so I'll let you guys have some rest. We'll continue on with our day here in Sydney. But thank you once again for joining us. I really hope to see you guys soon. You will have an amazing time. I'm sure everyone does enjoy coming to Sydney. And yeah, we're looking forward to seeing you in person. Thank you.
So much, everyone.
Thank you, Amber. Thank you, Hongbo. Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your day. Good evening.
You as well. Have a good day.
We'll have a good day. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Amber.